welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, you gave us a stack of sources focused on a really critical issue in modern management. It's all about how to truly understand and, effectively support employees who either have or are showing signs of ADHD.
Right. And our mission today is to really distill this material into personalized, actionable strategies, things that move us, hopefully, light years beyond that outdated one-size-fits-all approach that just doesn't work.
And before we even get into the tactics, I think we have to tackle the biggest conceptual hurdle first. I mean, there's this fantastic, necessary awareness around neurodivergence today, which is great. But we have to clarify a common misconception.
Yes.
When we talk about ADHD, we are talking about specific, biologically rooted factors.
That's so important. It is not just a fancy term for being disorganized or being, overwhelmed by the modern grind.
Which is everyone, let's be honest.
Exactly. That applies to almost everyone. With ADHD, we are dealing with genuine differences in brain circuitry, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, which, governs executive function. And crucially, we're talking about chemical imbalances.
Okay.
Specifically, issues related to the regulation and availability of dopamine. This affects focus, motivation, emotional processing on a really fundamental level.
So if we just acknowledge that the wiring is genuinely different, we can stop trying to treat these employees with neurotypical solutions. It's like, what, trying to use a screwdriver on a nail?
Exactly. And that distinction, that one idea, immediately informs the core of this deep dive. We're moving past blanket solutions and into tailored support. And to do that, we need a foundational framework. And your sources provided the perfect one from presenter Shay McConnon.
The tin of food.
The transformative concept of the tin of food.
I love this metaphor. It sounds so simple, but it's violated constantly in the workplace. The foundational principle here is you must treat people how they need to be treated, not how you assume they should be treated, or even how you yourself want to be treated.
And we all do that. We all default to our own internal experience. We manage others the way we want our own manager to act.
Of course.
But the tin of food analogy it forces you to realize the fallacy of that assumption.
So break it down for us.
Okay, so imagine you walk into a store and every single food item is in an identical, unlabeled tin.
Okay, no labels. I'm with you.
No labels, and you might just grab the first tin and assume, I don't know, it's a can of fruit salad, which is lovely when it's chilled and eaten with ice cream.
Sure.
But what if it's actually a can of baked beans?
Very different preparation instructions.
Completely. Beans require heat, seasoning, to be usable. If you treat the beans like fruit salad and serve them cold with ice cream,
They're ruined. It's disgusting.
they're ruined. And if you subject the fruit salad to a blast furnace meant for beans, it's also ruined.
I have definitely been the manager trying to force the fruit salad employee into the blast furnace routine.
Oh, it happens all the time because the manager is just relying on their own preference. And this is doubly crucial in a work setting when you introduce a neurodivergent brain.
Quite doubly.
Because the internal differences are going to be far more pronounced and specific than the typical differences we see between neurotypical coworkers. So if you try to apply the same universal communication style, the same deadline structure, the same feedback model to all your tins, you are virtually guaranteed to ruin or alienate a portion of your staff.
So before any tactical change, the fundamental question for the manager or even the coworker is simply, what's in the tin? What are the ingredients and what are the specific preparation instructions for this specific person?
That is the starting point. We really encourage you, the listener, to shift your focus from simply observing output to asking key questions about the process and the person. What motivates this employee? When do they feel they are at their absolute best and their worst? What specific parts of their job truly interest them? That curiosity is the first actionable step.
Okay, let's unpack a critical management blind spot that often comes up when we don't know what's in the tin. And this is the distinction between competence and energy or interest. The sources highlight that just because someone is highly skilled at a task,
Yes.
it absolutely does not follow that they enjoy doing it,
Right.
or that it's sustainable for them long term.
This is a devastating assumption. You might have an employee who is meticulous with administrative detail, maybe because the structure helps them focus.
Right, they're good at it.
They're fantastic at it, but they find the repetition absolutely draining. They can do it perfectly, but they hate it. And when you add the complexity of an ADHD brain, ignoring this difference between skill and genuine interest can be, catastrophic for their motivation.
Because if their brain already struggles with sustained engagement on tasks, they don't prefer, again, back to that dopamine issue, Forcing them into a role based purely on a skill set they find tedious is just a recipe for burnout.
It is. It's like setting up a marathon runner for a 100-meter sprint. They can finish it, sure, but that's not where their strength lies, and it will just exhaust them.
And this is where that personalization pays off. Learning those details, their best times, their genuine interests, that's not just a friendly exercise.
It informs resource allocation. If you know an employee is brilliant at deep data analysis, which is intrinsically rewarding for them, but finds repetitive reporting draining,
You don't give them more reporting.
you don't punish them with more reporting. You structure their role to maximize the deep analysis and either automate the repetition or delegate it.
Right. The goal isn't to make their job easier. The goal is to get the best possible output and the longest possible retention from that person. If a slight modification leads to 50% higher quality output in their preferred area, that's a massive win for the company.
Exactly. And managers often push back on this. They say this requires too much effort, too much overhead. But your sources reinforce that counterintuitive truth. Taking the time to understand what's in the tin, personally, more conversations, more listening, it's an investment. And it pays back exponentially in retention and output. The cost of replacing an employee is astronomical. The cost of a conversation is negligible.
Okay, so let's move from the philosophy of the tin to the actual toolkit. If we know what's inside, what are the first few things we change tactically? Let's start with instructions and project management. For an employee with ADHD, one of the first failures often happens at the point of instruction delivery.
Yes.
So how can instructions be delivered in a way they are most likely to remember and internalize, especially when focus is, fleeting?
The key is multimodal communication and immediate clarity. A manager just relying on a long, rambling verbal explanation in a hallway is setting the employee up for failure. You need the instructions written down, yes, but often even that isn't enough. The sources suggest combining methods: a brief verbal overview followed by a screen share or a visual map, and then a succinct written checklist that outlines the immediate first steps. By using visual, auditory, and written methods, you're maximizing the chance that the information actually sinks in.
Okay, that makes sense.
But even more important is structuring the project to address the inherent challenge of delayed gratification.
Ah, yes, the delayed gratification problem.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the neurochemistry here. Why do long projects often just stall out for this population?
It loops right back to dopamine. Dopamine isn't just a pleasure chemical, it's a motivation chemical. It's released when we anticipate a reward, which helps us start and sustain effort. In the ADHD brain, that system really struggles to provide the necessary chemical reward when the goal is 6 months away.
So it just feels impossible.
It's insurmountable. It leads to avoidance, paralysis, or, hyperfocus on totally unimportant side tasks.
So the solution is to essentially hack the reward system. You can't wait 6 months for that dopamine hit.
Precisely. The tactical solution is to implement shorter-term targets within that long project structure. You're basically engineering continuous rewards along the way.
So instead of the big final thing.
Forget the final 6-month deliverable for now. Focus on 3 small, defined milestones this week, and they need to be visible and tangible.
Like a checklist.
A project management tool with a clear, completed column, or a physical whiteboard. Ticking off those mini goals provides that series of small, necessary dopamine hits that sustains momentum. You turn a single marathon into a series of rewarding 100-meter dashes.
This moves us into what is arguably the most critical and sensitive area that managers must understand: rejection sensitivity dysphoria, RSD. This is a massive potential demotivator that operates entirely below the surface.
Yeah.
And RSD is something that requires more than just a casual definition, right? This isn't just about being sensitive or having thin skin.
Not at all.
So what is happening internally when RSD kicks in?
It's a profound neurological reaction. RSD is the experience of emotional pain triggered by perceived criticism or rejection that is completely disproportionate to the actual event.
Disproportionate.
Massively. We're not talking about simply feeling disappointed. We're talking about an overwhelming response that feels like a physical blow. It leads to intense shame, anxiety, and deep upset, and it's linked to the brain struggle with emotional regulation. What's so critical for managers to understand is that it takes very little to trigger the spiral, and the action that triggers it is usually totally benign and well-intended.
And the source material gave a perfect, frankly, chilling example of this. A manager reviews a draft, sends a quick email reply suggesting a few minor changes, maybe just correcting formatting or asking for more data in section 2. Very normal stuff.
To the manager, that's just objective professional feedback. It's designed purely to improve the final output. But when RSD kicks in for the employee, the internal interpretation is explosive. It is completely disconnected from the manager's intent.
So what did they hear?
That employee might internally interpret that benign email as, they hate the work, they think I'm incompetent, they don't trust me anymore, and I should probably start looking for a new job before they fire me.
That is an astonishing emotional leap triggered by a simple line edit request.
It is. And this disproportionate, deep-seated reaction can cause them to suffer extreme anxiety and potentially even consider leaving their job, all over something that was minor and entirely well-intended.
And the manager's completely oblivious to this internal turmoil. They just think, I gave them feedback. Why are they suddenly so withdrawn?
Exactly.
So the core takeaway here is that managers just cannot rely on what is typically considered professional objectivity in their feedback. That blanket approach of, I'll just send a brief email like I do for everyone, it becomes a psychological hazard.
It does. The method of showing support, especially when suggesting improvements, must be meticulously matched to the person.
So tactically, what does that look like?
Well, feedback should be multi-layered and framed as collaboration, not correction. A good rule of thumb is to deliver any critical feedback synchronously.
In a conversation, not an email.
A brief conversation. And frame it using the sandwich technique, but with genuine, personalized praise first. Start with 2 specific things that truly worked well and why, then introduce the amendment as a shared goal, and finish with a reinforcement of trust.
So you're building a buffer around the criticism.
You're building a context of safety. That's the encapsulation of the whole strategy. Personalization. You have to actively adjust the delivery mechanism to ensure the valuable content of the feedback is actually received without causing unintended emotional damage.
So what does this all mean for you, the manager, the leader, or the team member listening to this? It really drives home the profound impact of true psychological safety and understanding.
It really does.
For a person with ADHD who may have spent their entire life trying to mask their internal struggles, to be able to genuinely confide what their reality is like, what tasks drain them, what delivery methods help them, what feedback triggers RSD, and to feel truly seen and supported.
It's not just powerful.
It is absolutely transformational. It liberates that employee from the stress of masking and allows them to direct all that energy toward maximum output.
And it transforms the dynamic. It goes from a heavy deficit the employee is ashamed of to just a known variable the team manages collectively. That transparency is a win for their mental health, the manager's effectiveness, and the entire team's ability to retain valuable, often highly skilled talent.
Thank you so much for sharing your source material for this critical deep dive into personalized management strategies. This is essential knowledge for any modern leader.
And here is a final thought for you to consider as you wrap up. If tailoring communication, recognizing the difference between a person's ability and their interest, and adjusting feedback is so demonstrably transformative for someone with a diagnosed neurodivergence,
how much untapped potential are you currently missing in the employees who are not neurodivergent, simply by relying on that easy but ultimately limiting blanket approach that assumes everyone is the same tin of food?
A great question to ponder. Apply the tin of food mindset in your next interaction, and we will see you on the next deep dive.